back.
So we should definitely look at those issues.
Everybody, this is a program that's designed to refresh PROs, that's principal race officers, for the race committee, and to generally orient people who are new to serving on the race committee to what goes on the race committee. So that's what we're going to try and do tonight. Next slide, please. All right, during this presentation, we're going to talk about how races are supposed to be run by the book, by the rules. That's the racing rules of sailing, which comes out every 3 years. We're also going to talk about how they're modified a little bit by the YRA of Long Island Sound. That's the Yacht Racing Association of Long Island Sound. How they're modified again a little bit by the Cal Bay Racing Association. That's the racing association of the One Design boats. And we're also going to talk about how North Shore Yacht Club races are run, primarily those that are run from the Worry Wharf. And our club has responsibility for running One Design races for the Cal Bay Racing Association, as well as for the North Shore Yacht Club. I'm on slide number 3 for those of you who are up.
Richard.
Serving on the race committee is a long-standing tradition of sailing. It's in the Corinthian spirit. We do it as volunteers. If there weren't people who volunteered to do that, there would not be racing on Manhasset Bay, and for the most part, they wouldn't be racing in the country, and there certainly wouldn't be racing at North Shore Yacht Club. Tonight, I hope to, as I said, refresh the PROs and get the other people ready. Sure. Okay. Even if you're not a racer, we encourage you to serve on the race committee. I guarantee you that you will learn something about the sport. You'll be a better sailor. You'll be a better racer. We're also going to satisfy 4 hours of your work commitment to the North Shore Yacht Club, and you'll have a pleasant day on the water. So at the end of this session, or at the end of this presentation, I'm going to talk about who's going to volunteer to serve on the race committee. The PRO, the principal race officer, is the person who is charged with the responsibility of running the races, and the races have to be run properly under the rules of racing that are in effect for 2021 through 2024. The committee is generally made up of 2 to 4 people, and one of those people has to be authorized to or trained to run the North Shore Yacht Club race committee boat. And in order to do that, you see Captain Vic, who will train you and qualify you and anoint you and so on and so forth. So thereafter, you're a qualified operator until we change the boat or something like that. One of the first things you have to do to be PRO or serve on the race committee is read the sailing instructions. Okay. For whether it's a North Shore Yacht Club race or a Cal Bay Racing Association race, we want to be sure that you read the sailing instructions, because that is what's going to dictate how the race is run. Yes, sir.
How different is the new RC boat from the old one?
Well, the boat that we're using this year is the same boat we used last year.
Which is the next one.
Mako, yes.
The Mako. And I think last year was the first year we got the new boat. Prior to that, there was a different boat, but they're very similar. It starts with an electric key, but it's worth, if you've never driven this boat, it's worth spending 20 minutes with Vic, and you'll be reoriented. We're now on slide number 7. I'm going to talk about the race committee equipment. And in order to do that, I'm going to turn back and forth a couple of times. The race committee equipment comes in three different bags or three different,
Come closer
Uh,
to the camera so we can see them.
okay, well, I'm gonna take these things out and explain each one. This bag, one of the most important things about this bag is hanging on the outside. There's a booklet here that talks about, that will walk you through the entire running of the race on the worry wart. So if you ever get lost or unsure about what to do, it's there for you. There is also a loose-leaf book in here that contains the notice, the sailing instruction for the Cal Bay Racing Association. It will also have the sailing instructions for the various North Shore Yacht Club races. It will also have scoring sheets in there for the one design races at the Cal Bay Racing Association races. And for each race for the North Shore Yacht Club, you will get a scratch sheet which has to be filled out. And those things have all on the scoring sheets, you have to fill them in and record which boats are racing. On the scratch sheets, most of them will be filled in for you. But there's other goodies in here. We have a first aid kit. We have horns that back up the automatic horn, or that you use when you're using when we're not using the automatic horn. We have tape and marking pencils. If you have to tape something up, fix something, fix the horn to the boat. We have backup cans of noise for the horns. We have all sorts of goodies. Oh, we have a little device that will tell you, if you open it up properly, how fast the wind is blowing. And okay, you hold this thing, it says there's an arrow, it's idiot proof. You hold it into the wind if you can't tell what the wind is doing, and it will tell you how fast the wind is going. Have some line here because you can never have too much line. We have this little wand here that'll help you tell you where the wind is.
Magic wand.
You like this, a magic one.
We call
If
the
there
tooth
is no wind,
fairy.
you hold this up, the wind comes.
We call the
It's
tooth fairy.
designed to help you figure out where the wind is. But you know, the worry wood, the front of the worry wood is generally facing into the wind.
Assuming you can tell the front.
Oh, here's a little hand blower up to blow up the, I'm not sure what it's for, because the special marks are too big for that. When the automatic horn fails and the handheld horn fails, you have a whistle, okay? And you also use the whistle to record the boats that come in second, third, fourth, and fifth, whereas the first boats get a horn. Okay, that's bag number one.
You just put some back in without telling us what it was.
It's like rubber bands.
Oh, that was rubber band.
Oh,
that was
rubber
right.
band. Well, I'll tell you what the rubber bands are for.
The board, you should.
When, believe it or not, we have a clipboard here for the scoring sheets. I do get a pass on being clumsy, right? Okay, you put the scoring sheet in here, you rubber band the bottom of it so it doesn't blow away. Come on. All right, that's bag number one. And we expect you to put the stuff back in the same bag that it came out.
What's behind door number 2?
Okay. Bag number two. Bag number two looks like this. I happen to empty the contents, but I'm going to show you every one of them. You know that. The main thing that bag number two has is the automatic horn and the battery pack that supports it or that powers it.
Come closer to them.
We will. Now,
They can't see it unless you come
oh, I'm
closer.
sorry. The automatic horn, this is the battery pack. This is the automatic horn. You plug it into, it's got an outlet for it. It's idiot proof. A member of the race committee will make sure that this is charged, so you don't have to worry about charging it. Now I'm going to give you a quick operation on how to work the automatic horn, but I'm not going to blow the horn because because we could blow the horn in a closet. And I'll explain to you why in a minute. The automatic horn has a keypad that says, start the sequence, and that goes beep, 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 come hither or give me your attention. And then it automatically goes about a minute later into a 3-minute starting sequence. And we use the 3-minute starting sequence for the one design boats. So we don't use it for the North Shore Yacht Club races. We're going to use hand horns for that and stopwatches. But, okay,
So, Stephen, so this is changed with respect to 2 years ago. 2 years ago, the 5-minute was.
yes, we have changed it. Last year, all the one design races were 3 minutes, 3-minute starts, and it's automatic. And I'm going to go through the sequence of what horn signals you're going to hear in just a minute. Yes, sir.
Richard, there is a manual button so that the electric horn can be used as well with the North Shore Yacht Club races.
Interesting. Okay, so, all right, fine. So I think that's actually a better idea because it's a much louder horn. And it says, idiot proof, manual horn. Okay, if you push that, it's going to make a signal for as long as your finger is on it. One of the important things is when you're starting the one design races, because there are often multiple races with multiple fleets, we want to, and we don't have what's called rolling starts. In other words, each start is separate. So once you start a race, once the starting signal goes on, you have to press with 2 fingers, the 2 buttons which are labeled reset. You press them together and it will reset the sequence. Now, Richard, we're going to put this horn in a closet and we're going to let you hear how it goes when I tell you to, Richard. And the reason we're doing this, or the reason I'm personally doing it, is because
Because he
that
has the
horn is so
headphones.
loud that it can hurt you. And I must tell you seriously that I'm serious now. It has permanently hurt my hearing when I served last year. And it's different than the hand horns because it's much, much louder. And there are many, many, many more beats of this horn. So we have 3, we have 3 sets of earmuffs for the worry wart. Use them, please use them, because you don't want to hurt your hearing. Now, Richard, can you, we're ready. That's to get your attention, and soon you're going to hear 1 long blast, and then we're going to stop that.
Don't stand at the door.
I just wanted you to give us, I wanted everybody to get a sense of what that horn's about. It's supposed to be a. Okay.
It's better in the
Now,
closet.
now reset it, please.
Quickly.
So that's the 3-minute, Richard, that's the 3-minute one, and a minute later, the other 2.
I'm going to go through all of that. I just wanted to demonstrate the loudness of that horn. I'll come back to that. Also in that bag, the electronic bag, is an air pump, which is used for filling up these special marks when you need them. And I urge everybody to fill up the special marks before they actually put them into the race committee boat blown up. And the battery charger will operate this, but it's also, there is a plug on the race committee boat. So you can work this off of the race committee boat. You can do either or. And you plug this in, a cigarette lighter thing, and this is the right nozzle to fill up our special marks. There is also, because it's electric, a timer which will count the it goes forward only. But if you start it, it will give you minutes, seconds, and hours, and so on. And I put a new battery in it this year, so it should go. Okay, a lot of people like to use their own cell phones or their wristwatches, not wristwatches, stopwatches, dedicated stopwatches. I would urge people to have at least two watches going, particularly when we're doing a race, the North Shore Yacht Club race, where we have to take starting times with the cruising start and finish time. You know, I'll explain cruising start in a bit. Yes, sir.
That timer has a characteristic which is particularly useful for our cruising start, which we'll get into, in that when it hits 0 for the 5-minute sequence, it starts counting up. And you can use that time as boats cross the starting line individually.
Great, good to know. If everybody didn't hear that, what Bob is telling us is that you can set this for 5 minutes, but when it counts down to 0, it begins to count up. And that lets the cruising start people record the actual time of the boat starting and the time of the boat finishing. You should just let it run. But again, use a backup watch. Also, part of the equipment that comes there is all the flags, and I'm going to refer to the various flags over the course of this evening. But the flags are all in pockets, which are labeled Race Committee and Yacht Club Burgee, Sonar class flag, postponement flags, and so on and so forth. So put them back in the bag or the slot out of which they have come. You can see it has multiple slots. And most of the flags are even labeled right on their edge of what they are. We also have these are recall signals that you wave in the event of one boat over early, and I'll come back to this a little bit, one or single boats over early, or a general recall, which is waved like this. So all of this stuff is going to be staged downstairs at the foot of the steps, at the foot of the pier, and it's the race committee's job to put it onto the race committee boat. If for any reason it isn't staged, because the race committee has failed you, those things are all stored right under the window in the storage room in the club, and the special marks are stored in the basement with their anchors, and as are the starting and finishing pins. Okay. Also picked up a pair of binoculars. There are binoculars sitting on the stereo system in the yacht club. And if you don't have your own, take those. That's one of the reasons they're there.
But put them back.
But put them back. Next slide, Captain. Pass Commodore. Yeah. Like a guy, like a guy.
Come on now.
I don't believe it. Like a guy.
I drifted off.
The race committee, on race day, we check the weather. We're on number 8, right? Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we check the weather, we check the times of high and low tide, we check the current, we check if we can, whatever is happening on Manhasset Bay, either by how these things are announced or what you observe going on the bay. All of this towards the end of setting proper course.
What app do you use to check the current?
I used HiveGraph for current, and I used the Weather Channel app for weather, and I used Radar US Plus for radar, for thunderstorms and things of that nature. The Radar US Plus, you can actually set it as a movie, and it will take you from an hour ago to 3 minutes ago and so on. And you can see these thunderstorms running across the country. Okay, everybody should bring food, water, snacks. And the PRO should talk to the committee about who is gonna bring what. The yacht club does in fact pay for lunch, so it's a free, you know. Bring rain gear, what? Oh, no, there's a money limit, but, you know, we won't get into it. You have to be, remember, this is a Corinthian yacht club, you know, we're all here together, non-profit. Bring rain gear, bring hats, bring sunscreen. Verify that everything is working. When you know, make sure the horn makes, when you plug that horn in to the battery pack, it goes beep, not a real loud one, but it's worth hearing the beep just to know it's good. And the PRO should make sure people have multiple watches. On slide number 9. The one design races start at 2 o'clock, and the North Shore Yacht Club races generally start at 1:30. By the way, there are two races that North Shore runs, which are not run from the Worry Board. And that is the day race, which this year is going to be using the Franco Presti's J40 Resolve. And as the race committee vote, that race starts on the Sound, and it finishes in the Bay. And the Moonlight Regatta starts at the Worry Board.
Started.
I was about to say that, I didn't say it. And the Moonlight Regatta starts at the Worry Ward and ends wherever the sailing instructions tell you it ends. Everybody on the race committee should have a PFD, a life jacket, and they should be worn on the Worry Ward. If there is a race, you know, make sure you have a copy of a North Shore Yacht Club race. You should get a scratch sheet. It will be given to you by a member of the race committee, along with the sailing instructions. And we try and have them loaded into the loose book in advance. One of the reasons is, first of all, the race committee should read those things. Secondly, there are boats sometimes come by and say, hey, I lost my race sailing instructions. Do you have an extra copy? And you give them.
Richard,
Yes.
you're using race committee interchangeably, I think. There's
Race
a race
manager.
committee and then there's the day race.
When
there's a
I
race
speak
committee
about
and the race
committee
manager.
Today, I'm talking about the committee for the day.
When you talk about the people getting things sorted out for you, that's the race management. right?
Absolutely. I'm going to be more careful the rest of this presentation.
Okay,
We're now on slide number 10. The race committee loads all this equipment onto the race committee boat. And as I said, it's generally staged at the bottom of the steps and ready to go out. Captain Vic or the launch operators generally bring the race committee boat to the dock, so it's easy to do. If for any reason they haven't done that, go out on the launch, bring the boat to the dock. Make sure that the fuel is at least half full. And again, you can get that from Captain Vic, but if he or the launch guys are not here, just take a look at the tank and make sure that the fuel is. I'm quite sure we keep fuel at the club for in small quantities to fill up the outboard motors like this. When you go out, make sure there's at least 2 radios available. Make sure the one on the boat is working, or at least 2 handheld, or the one on the boat plus 1 handheld. But you're going to need 2 radios. Load on the folding chairs, which are in the storeroom, and a folding table, which you want to set up all your stuff on the Worry Board. And it's the PRO who's responsible for making sure everything is good. In the event that there is 0 wind or no wind or a very heavy wind or thunderstorms, races can be postponed or canceled without going out to the Worry Board. You can do that from the yacht club. if you, and the way we do that is we call together yacht clubs on the telephone. In the Cowbay Racing Association, sailing instructions, the phone numbers are there and the names of the people are there. If you happen to know who are the key sailors in a particular place, you might want to call them too. And it's up to us also to notify if we have boats on moorings that are about to go out to race, to make sure that they get notified by radio or send a launch out if necessary. But everybody should know if the race is being held. And that's within the prerogative of the PRO. Yes, sir.
Rich, I typically find it's easy to also call the docs and VHF, because they're as well as
Okay.
and they respond and they're pretty good about it.
And they
Okay.
call us.
All right, for those of you who didn't hear that, Bill is suggesting that not only do we call the dock master over there or the contact number that we have, but simply call them on their hailing signal on the VHF and let them know what's going on.
What are these numbers stored?
They're in the sailing instructions for
On the
the
first page.
Cowbay Racing Association. And
They're in
that
that,
looks like this.
they're in the notebook, right?
And the phone numbers and the key people are right here. And the phone number for the yacht club is here, as well as the key person who we want to contact.
It's in the black notebook?
Yes, these are in the black notebook. There's multiple copies of this in the black notebook.
This is with the VHF.
Does it have the VHF on there? No, but oh, yes, it does have the VHF. It has the top, yes.
That's
They're all there.
That's
Yes.
how they contact us and how we contact them.
Okay,
And it works really well.
okay. So as long as you create positive contact, that's your job. Okay, moving on. Moving on.
We're there.
Best to leave the dock about an hour and a half before the starts. When you get to the worry ward, if there's a southerly wind, best place to tie up is on the starboard side of the worry ward. And begin to unload the equipment, all this stuff, these bags and such, and the chairs and the tables and so on. The combination to the door to the worry ward is 1891. Sometimes it's locked, sometimes it's not, but if it's locked, that's what it is. And again, I told you that all things you want to know are in this book. And this book has that combination.
Does that tell you where to tie up if the wind's out of the north?
No. But if the wind is out, all right. I'm not going to get into that. It's generally out. But you tie up the race committee boat on the side on which the pin will not be. That's the objective. The starting pin will not be.
Do you have a compass that would tell us north?
North, if you're at the worry ward, you look at the North Shore Yacht Club, you look at north.
Look at the red roof.
Look at the red roof. And it's not the red roof fin. It's just the red roof. Okay, you set up, you unload the boat, you set up, the burgee goes on the forward mast, that's the yacht club burgee goes on the forward mast. The race committee flag goes on the aftermast. The battery pack gets set up with the horn on one of the vertical posts of the worry ward that holds up the roof. And you set up the horn on the same side that the starting pin will be set up on. And the reason I say tie up the boat on the starboard side is generally there's a southerly. The one design boats like to have their starting pin on the left side or the port side of the worry ward is where they want it to be. Test the horn, but make sure you stop the horn by putting the two buttons on. The to stop the sequence, otherwise it goes into the sequence. You put the scoring sheets on that clipboard that I showed you. There's pencils in there, there's pens. Have at least 2 manual horns ready for backup. Have the whistle ready for backup and for finishes. Have the binoculars ready if you need them. And agree what watch is going to be primary and what watch is going to be backup. Did you get that one? You take the orange flag, the orange starting flag, which says start. Again on a vertical post on the same side as the starting pin is going to be on. There is a blue finishing flag, and by the way, that's new this year. One of the changes in the rules are that the finish line is defined by a blue flag on the race committee. If a little bit later, I'm going to explain that if there are North Shore Yacht Club races and One Design races in the same day, we're going to urge everybody to use a separate finish line, separate from the starting line. But if it's just One Design races, after the start, put up the blue flag so that it could either be on the same post or a different post, as long as the sighter knows to move from one to the other, finishing and starting. And I'll explain the sighter in a moment. But officially, the blue flag now is one end of the starting, the finish line.
But then the finish pin is still the same yellow.
The finish pin didn't change. Yes. It's just one blue flag. And again, I'm going to talk about separate finishes. Put the AP signal, which is here. That's the postpone flag. You put that on flag halyards, which are on the whirring warp. Put it in a place where don't raise it. Just get it ready. Keep it in a place where it shouldn't be seen. Frankly, it should be very clear that it's not flying, but it should be ready to fly if and when you need it. If the pro hasn't done so previously, he has to begin to give people assignments. There's a sighter, someone who sights the starting line and the finish line. I'm sorry, a signaler. Signaler's a sighter too, but we start with the signal. He or she operates the automatic horn or the manual horn, which as the case may be. They also keep everybody aware of where we are in the starting sequence. If there are any questions about it. Okay. There's a sighter who's someone who sights the starting line and the finish line. Carefully sights the line. It should be in position a little bit before the actual start, just in case somebody is over early, because he calls boats over early with the individual over early flag. That one. And we'll explain the detail of that in a minute. And also calls out clear when the boat is has come back across the starting line and hasn't started yet. And by the way, again, a new change in the rules. The rules now say that a boat starts when her hull crosses the starting line, or if she finishes when her hull crosses the finish line. It's no longer the hull or equipment or such, so that if a boat has a sprit or a bowsprit or a spinnaker pole sticking out, or someone who's on the crew waving a hand to get a finish, that doesn't count. The hull counts, any part of the hull.
Is there any philosophical explanation of why these changes or just random? Yeah.
No, these are debated by the people who control the rules of sailing. It's above my pay grade. But
But did they explain why they changed their mind after a century or so, or just they didn't? I'm just curious. Okay, they
No, it's not to me. I'm sure somebody made a case and made an argument and explained it. But it may have something to do with ballast, the fact that squids are so common these days. I really don't know. But nor do we care. We care, this is the rule, amigo. Okay, we have a recorder. That person records all the boats that are going to be in the race. If it's a one design race, the boats that come out, we record their sail numbers under their class designation, and the scoring sheet shows you different opportunities you have for sonars and has to pay one designs and lasers and so on. That cider also calls out the finishes. So in the case of the one design races, all he has to do is, okay, the sail number 390 is finishing. And the reporter records in the sequence in which they finish first, second, third, fourth, and so on. In the case of the reporter, when it's a North Shore Yacht Club race, if it's a racing start, you just record which boats have actually started. And by the way, you'll have a scratch sheet that tells you which boats we expect out there. Sometimes boats don't show up if they don't show up because they're hanging off the list. Sometimes boats show up and say, hey, may I race? And you say, yes, of course, North Shore Yacht Club boat, and you add them to the list so that we have a good list. The reporter also records, in the case of a cruising start, the hour, minute, and seconds that the boat starts by each boat. And all North Shore Yacht Club races, which are handicap races, you record the hour, minute, and seconds of each boat's finish. And that's recorded there. You have flag operators, that person that raises and lower flags on the signal of the PRO or the signal. You have someone who posts the courses. And obviously people can have multiple jobs, which is only 2 to 4 people. And the courses are posted on placards, which are located inside the worry wart in a box, and they're posted on the side of the worry wart. There are shelves that receive them, so you slide them in. And I'm going to talk later about how you read them from top to bottom. So you have a communicator, someone who talks on the radio to the people who are racing. PRO is responsible for all this stuff. He supervises the people on the race committee. He's responsible for all the equipment, all the assignments. He determines and announces the course, for the courses. He's responsible he keeps an eye on the weather to see whether things are changing, because he keeps an eye on the race course. It's not the start of the race and you start drinking beer. You don't do that. You watch the race and you see what's going on in the race course. You make sure that you're conducting the race in accordance with the sailing instructions. You have to set a proper starting and finish line, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Setting special marks when they're required. Communicating with the organizers, the competitors, and the protest committee if necessary. Yes, sir.
Richard, you might cover this later, but I'm wondering, when using a sound signaling system for the starts of the one design races, how is the class notification?
I do get into that later,
Okay.
so just bear with us a little bit. In years past, the race committee was discouraged, or it wasn't the practice to communicate by radio or by hailing with the participants. That has changed in recent years. We encourage, and particularly with COVID, with short, not many people on the race committee for the day. We encourage, we're much less formal about it. So we encourage you to talk to the racers on the radio, make your announcements of the course on the radio, if you're asked about where you stand in the starting sequence, you respond to that stuff. You generally communicate in a free manner. And the Cal Bay Racing Association uses channel 69 as its communication channel. The yacht club, you check the sailing instructors for each race to see what channel is being used. North Shore Yacht Club, check, I said it. When you post the courses, announce them on the radio. If you're asked about this, where are we in the starting sequence, respond to that. If people ask for clarifications, try and respond. Obviously, some people could be appealed. You don't have to respond to appeal, but you want to be courteous and you want to be responsive. If you're going to change a course or have a general recall or something like that, you announce it on the radio. Sometimes you're going to see that I talk about sometimes communicating with racers about, is this a good course or a bad course? Or do you want to stop racing and so on? It's often best to do that by hail or on a different channel, not the official channel for communicating with the racers for the course. So this doesn't get broadcasted all over the place. Course selection. For all except the Moonlight Regatta and the day race, the courses come off of the Cal Bay Racing Association chart, which is part of the sailing instructions for the Cal Bay Racing Association. And these are on our website. So anybody can download them and refer to them. And they have pre-labeled various marks, a combination of government marks and racing marks that are set out on the day. The one design boats generally like to have windward leeward races, so that's what we give them. And very often a typical course will be UP. That means that you go to U first, which is in the southern end of the bay, up to P, which is off of Micah, and then back to U, and then back to P. That, by the way, is not a twice around mark. That's a twice around course. That's UP, and I'm going to get into twice around courses.
Is that the race committee does that, or the race management?
The race committee for the day does this. The people on the word dictate the course and announce the course. Because the race management committee may not be on the water, they may not know what's going on. We want people on the water determining the course based upon wind conditions, strength, potential changes to the wind, current, other activity on the bay. And again, the one design boats generally like to have 2 to 4 races in an afternoon. So you keep them relatively short. And sometimes if it looks like there's dying breeze or not much breeze, just to get in a race, you do it twice around course so that you can end the race after once around. And I'll get into the detail of that in a few minutes. Make the first mark if you possibly can, an upwind mark, and leave it to port and announce it that way. The reason for that is it separates the fleet a little bit. It's a safe, leaving at the port is a safe way to do it. So you have boats going around on starboard for the most part. It's a convention that is generally honored by experienced racers. As I said, it doesn't hurt to talk to knowledgeable people if you have any concerns about whether or not you set in the proper course. And we can try and do that on another channel. We're on number 23. On days when you're also running a North Shore Yacht Club race, we urge you to consider a separate finish line, because we're having multiple races on the one design boats. You don't want boats finishing, some boats starting and some boats finishing on the same mark, same line at the same time. And in order to do that, you hoist flag number F, which again is in the bag, and you announce on the radio that there will be a separate finish line, and you set a separate finish line. And in the marks that you're going to take out in the race committee book, one of them has a pin with one flag on it. That's the starting line, and the other pin has two flags on it. That's the finish line, the separate finish line. Yes, sir.
So I'm confused. What's the purpose of code flag F if you've got the blue flag for finish line?
Because the blue flag tells you when you sight it between that and the pin, but that's the finish line. But you want to announce that because, for instance, the one design boats use the same starting and finishing line, and many races often use the same starting and finishing line. It's one line. The purpose of raising code flag F is to say the starting line is not the finish line. There is a separate finish line, and the sailing instructions will tell you that it's denoted by a pin with two flags on it as opposed to one flag.
The blue flag is on the
And the blue flag is on the worry wheel. But it's an announcement that says you're not going to finish on the same line that you started. Is that clear?
Yeah, it seems redundant to me because you've got a pin out there with two flags and a blue flag, and people should be knowing that the blue flag and two flags.
The two flags not always out there.
But because it's so common that
It's new this year.
I'm sorry, I need some of that water.
Okay.
Because it's so common in the one design races to have the same, and many other races, to have the same start and finish line, one as being the same line. You have to tell everybody that we're not going to start. For instance, an example, let's say the wind is from the south and it stays from the south. So you've started on the port side of the worry ward and you finish on the port side of the worry ward. We want everybody to know in advance that when they're coming back to finish from the Long Island Sound, that the finish line is now going to be on the starboard side of the worry ward. And it's so for all of the racers, if you announce it that way, one design as well as EHRF. Okay. I encourage race committees and PROs to set a special mark if they don't have a clean upwind course. And what I mean by that is sometimes we get a northerly, sometimes we get an easterly, we get different places, wind comes from 360 degrees. And UNP, generally, those are the marks in the southern end of the bay. Given the prevailing winds, they're generally upwind marks and they work well. But when they don't work, set a special mark, which is these big yellow blow-up markers that we have, and set it out with the race committee vote. You anchor it, you send somebody out there to drop it. And please do that because it makes for a better race, plain and simple. It's also good to set a downwind special mark But frankly, that's less critical than the first one. So, yes, you can go. On the North Shore Yacht Club races, the typical course will take 2 to 3 hours to complete. That's with the exception of the day race and the moonlight regatta. Different courses, and again, the sailing instructions will dictate whether, if there are more than one division. Sometimes we break our divisions in by PHRF rating, sometimes between cruising boats and racing boats. Most of the time, they start with a single start, but again, you have to check the sailing instructions. Sometimes they sail the same course. Sometimes the race committee will give them a different course, a longer course for the faster boats, a shorter course for the slower boats. So read your sailing instructions, and again, the race is up to the PRO to announce this properly. They'll post 2 different courses on the Warrior, and they'll announce them by radio.
As I remember, many times the divisions are spinnaker, no spinnaker, right? Spinnaker,
None
no
of
spinnaker.
the yacht club races, other than the ones on the Sound, have spinnakers. So all of the races that start from the Warrior are non-spinnaker races. The only ones that we have spinnaker races are the North Shore Day Race, and I think the Moonlight Regatta, and even the Moonlight Regatta, I'm not sure, you check the sailing instructions. That's all.
Richard, many times the decision as to whether to have 1 or 2 divisions is made after the sailing instructions are completed, depending on the number and type of boats that have enrolled for that race. So it's not necessarily in the sailing instructions as to how many divisions there will be necessarily.
Well, I won't argue with that, but I would be disappointed if the sailing instructions don't at least announce that that's a possibility for the PRO to call.
Well, that's a little different, yes.
Okay, but I think a proper sailing instruction, if that's a possibility, should allude to that possibility.
Right.
And then it's up to the PRO, but with his posting of the courses and the verbal announcements, to make clear what's going on.
Did I understand you right that in the bay, no boats can race with the spinnaker?
No, that's not what I said.
Oh,
What I said is no North Shore Yacht Club races that start from the Worry Ward are spinnaker races. So the One Design races use spinnakers. I'm not talking about that. We've got North Shore Yacht Club races. None of our races allow spinnakers at this time. Now, if the race management committee changes its attitude and wants it, because of demand from the membership, that they want to have a spinnaker, that will be made clear in the sailing instruction for that particular
The
race.
Moonlight Regatta doesn't use spinnakers?
I don't remember whether the Moonlight Regatta,
Because that does start from the
The
Warrior.
moonlight, the moonlight.
Moonlight Regatta traditionally allows it, but again, check the sailing instruction.
Okay.
Because that's what tells you what is allowed and what isn't. Okay. And again, the race committee and the PRO are setting these courses based upon wind, expected wind, sea conditions, things of that nature. If you expect unreliable wind, I would urge people to, or if you have very light wind, consider twice around races. Twice around. And what twice around does, and you get it, I won't get ahead of myself. I'll explain twice around in a moment. But it requires the boats, before they start the second time around, to pass through the finish line so that the race is very easily stopped at the end of one circuit, as opposed to going around the circuit. Again, upwind marks are best. Well, upwind first legs are best to set the courses, even if it requires setting a special mark. if in doubt, don't hesitate to talk to knowledgeable people about the courses. And when I say knowledgeable people, I'm tempted to say, and those who aren't necessarily looking for an advantage when we discuss it with you. So, you know what I mean by that. Okay. Try to set a course that has a variety of sailing, beating, running, reaching. The triangular course is what's often done, although our bay makes it a little bit difficult to make it even, you know, of all three of those paths. But the expect on the club races, if there is decent wind, to be sent out to the sound when by the race committee, and of course the racers that go out there should be knowledgeable in dealing with commercial traffic and things of that nature. All right, when starting from the worry ward, generally, and again, you have to check with the sailing instructors, our division is Division 6, and it's identified by Code Flag 6 as who's going to start. Setting of the starting line. For the one design, when there's a one design race, we generally set the pin on the port side of the worry ward with a southerly breeze. And that will be the starting line for, well, unless you change it, you do have the option to change it. But if you're going to start changing it for different divisions, it gets complicated. So sometimes when you set it, you're married to it unless you change it for other divisions. If you're setting a course for the North Shore Yacht Club races only, well, we almost never have North Shore Yacht Club races on a day when there is no one design race. So the starting line is always going to be on the port side of the worry ward, assuming the setting. You want to set the starting line square to the wind. Which means if the wind is coming from dead south, you set the wind, the starting line perpendicular to the wind. I didn't draw a sketch for this. I did that for the racing boat, but I assume the PROs know what square to the wind means. And if you're not a PRO, go explain it to you. Okay.
Can you, what's the tolerance limit? 1 degree, 5 degrees, 10, 15 degrees, the squareness?
The squarer, the better. The truer you are perpendicular to the wind, the better. And the reason for that is that the minute there is a favored in other words, if the pin is close, if the starting line is not square to the wind, you begin to create a favored end. And because one will be closer to the more upwind than either the pin or the worry ward will be more upwind than the other. So it will be closer and therefore be a shorter distance to the first mark. Now, I'll admit that what I just said is not perfectly true, because if you're using B or P, March B, I'm sorry, U or B, then the wind is not, well, rarely does the wind come exactly from U or B. But you do the best you can.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm asking is sometimes the wind changes. And therefore, the temptation is to keep on changing the starting line until you finally get tired and you say, well, no. So the reason for asking the question, what's the tolerance, is because let's say that it is 10 degrees. I don't know the numbers. Then as long as the wind keeps flipping, it is within 10 degrees, you don't have to do anything. But if it is 5 degrees, then you have to fill it.
Yeah, but if it becomes a matter of judgment of
Yeah.
the PRO. And so for instance, I mean, if it were me, if I saw a 45-degree change in the wind, I'd begin to change it. If it's 5 or 10 degrees, I'm not gonna change it. Okay, if the wind is oscillating. Everybody, in other words, the oscillating means it's going back and forth, but sometimes it's coming from here, and sometimes it's coming from there. And you can't predict that exactly where it's gonna be. I must say in very, officially run races, I don't know how else to say that, they will often move the first mark after the race has started to make sure it's truly upwind. We don't do that, but don't forget, most of it, certainly the North Shore Yacht Club races are fairly informal. Doesn't mean that I won't cut your throat to win. I might scratch your throat, I don't know if I cut it, but I threaten you with a knife. But the point is that these are not championship races. And if things are off by a few degrees, nobody gets excited. The fact of the matter is too, just to interject, rarely do we see protests. That we expect people to generally understand the rules. If people are racing and are courteous and at least pay attention to the rules of the road, if you will, as opposed to the racing rules, which are slightly different. Nobody gets too crazy as long as there's no collisions and people avoid nastiness.
How close to the starting time are you going to move into? At your,
That's up to the race committee. The race committee can always postpone, and I'm going to get into postponements in a minute. If there's a significant change in the wind, you postpone. You raise a postponement flag, you shoot off 2 horns, you hold up everything, you send somebody out, you move the starting pin. So you do it, but you only do it. No,
you got your 45-degree shift, not 5 or 10.
That's in my
The starting line should be approximately 1.5 times the overall length of all of the boats that are racing. So if you take our fleet, if our fleet is average of 35 feet, you take something like 42 feet or something like that, and whatever 1.5 times 35 is, and if it's 10 boats, you make the starting line about that wide. And you make because if you don't make it wide enough, you're going to get bunching. It's going to be hard for you to see, and you're going to get people screaming at one another on the boats. And it also, along the line, if the line is too long, it will begin to magnify the out of squareness, out of the perpendicularity to the wing. The finish line, if at all possible, we make the finish line square to the course from which the last mark is being set. Okay. Now, if you're using, in the case of the one design boat, where you're using the same start and finish line, it is what it is, man. So you won't necessarily be square to it. But if you're having a separate finish line, well, even there you can't be absolutely true, because the one design boats are going to have one kind of course, and the North Shore Yacht Club boats are going to have another kind of course. We may the North Shore boats may be coming from out on the Sound, whereas the one design boats may be coming in from P, and each of those are different angles. Do the best you can. The finish line can be shorter because not everybody is going to be crossing it at once. You want to be short enough so you can see the boats and you can identify the numbers and take the proper time. it could be, it's hard for me to say exactly how short it could be, but it's gotta be long enough so the boats have room not to bang into one another and room for several boats to control at once. Pre-start, more pre-start procedure. We talked about reporting the sail number or the name of each boat that's going to start. If there are boats sailing around in the starting area, and this happens sometimes with the one design boats and with the North Shore boat. You see somebody sailing around, it's a sonar, sonars are racing today. The guy didn't sail and say, hey, I'm ready, I'm sailing today. You call out to that guy, you hail him, or you call him on the radio if you can. You say, hey, you're racing today? Some of our members on the North Shore Yacht Club race like to go down there and watch the start of the racing, but they don't want to race. You make it clear, are you racing or aren't you racing? If you're not racing, stay out of the way of the boats that are racing. Particularly the starting.
In the equipment bag, is there a hailer?
No, but nothing stops you from shouting, because some of us have very loud voices, you know? Yeah. Okay.
Hailing on radio.
Everybody, all the races carry because they're communicating.
I know.
But if you're not racing,
If you're not racing, then you're unsure, you're kind of.
But you can wave to them, or
Then we
you
use a
can
cannon.
signal them, or you ask another boat to sail by them and say,
Just asking if there's a hailer.
there's no loud hailer on the,
just a shotgun.
on the boat. I used to carry a megaphone on all the boats I own, so I could
Can.
shout at people, but I don't do that anymore. Okay, we want to post the course prior to the warning signal for each class. And that's done on the side of the worry ward, as I told you. You also announce it on channel 9. Courses are posted vertically on the worry ward. 69. I don't know what I said. Okay. The courses are posted, the sequence in which you round the marks are posted on the side of the worry board. And it's going to be posted on the same side as the starting pin is on. The PRO can post all of the classes at once. They get posted vertically and they get posted in the sequence in which they start. And the starting rack or the rack that holds the placards are labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you put the courses for each class under its name or under its number. And I'll come into how they're numbered in a moment. When you're starting a North Shore Yacht Club race, it starts before all the other races, so you just put it up. And again, it's from top to bottom. Okay, marks posted with a red background and to be left of port. Green background or to be left of starboard. And I've been saying a couple times, UP is not a twice around course, but UP with the T flag flying tells you that it's a twice around course. And again, you announce that on the radio. You make sure everybody hears you. Yes, sir.
The sailing instructions for the one design races used to prohibit the use of the twice around flag. Has that been changed?
Yes. I can't find that prohibition in the rules that I look for.
It's in that it wasn't in the sailing.
Yeah, but it's not in the sailing instructions for the one design races anymore. And it's not there. Okay, and you can download the sailing instructions to Cavalry Racing Association off our website.
Good.
So why don't you do that? If you find it in there, let me know. But I don't think it's in there. So if it's not prohibited, it's permitted. provided you fly the T flag, announcing it twice around. And on a twice around course, it's understood that forget about the twice around. All our courses end at the worry ward. And you don't post the worry ward as the last mark. So if it's BP, you go around B and then P, and then you come back to the worry ward to finish. And a proper course, whether it be for one designs or North Shore Yacht Club races, is a course that you can wind a string around without the string crossing itself. You don't want to have boats cross. You don't want that string to cross itself, and you don't want the boats to have to cross one another. They end up crossing one another because some are on port and some are at starboard as you're coming to or going away from the mark, but the rest of it together. The flag operator should always be ready to raise the postponement flag at the order of the PRO. Okay, we're on slide number 33, and this is the one that talks about twice around versus once around, or twice around versus the course that you go. BPBP, the upper part, is not a twice around course, and the sailing instructions make no requirement of you. So you can pass through the start or finish line or not pass through the start or finish line as you go around the second time. And by the way, that's different than Thursday nights. Thursday nights, not that we're talking about Thursday nights, but those people who race Thursday nights are not permitted to go through the start finish line. In that case, it's one line, both the start and the finish line. To commence the second time around, they're not allowed to go through that start or finish line other than to start and to finish.
Unless it's twice around.
Unless it's twice around. If it's a twice, yeah, but it has to be announced as twice around. So BPBP is not twice around. You can go through or not go through the start finish line at will. Whereas BP with T flag flying, you must go through the finish line, if there is a separate finish line, or the start finish line to commence the second time around.
But you're actually sailing the same course. It's just a question of whether you're crossing the start.
Well, but you may on the if you're going back, if it's an upward way from P to B, you're sailing around the same marks, but you're not necessarily sailing in the same water.
Right, because you're not going through the start.
Exactly.
Okay, but you're rounding the same marks.
Right. More pre-start procedures on slide number 34. The one design boats start with a 3-minute start, which is governed by the automatic form. I strongly recommend everybody wear earmuffs. We've talked about that. Before the warning signal, you raise the class flag. And the class flags are in this bag. This is the sonar class flag, and on the next slide or two, I'm going to show you all the other class flag. And there are no other flags in the course of the starting sequence. It's just the class flag to announce which class is going to be sailing. So that should be raised before the attention signal. The signaler has to be in a position to wave the individual recall or the general recall.
Will you go through the 3-minute sequence? Because there is no P flag anymore, obviously.
I'm going to go through it in detail.
Oh, okay.
We need a couple more slides. Okay, next slide, 35. We want 35.
No, I bet.
I say up there on the slide that if we're gonna be, if there's two races, you know, both North Shore Yacht Club and one design races, you use a separate horn. I much prefer the idea of using the automatic horn, just press the manual thing. But you do need a stopwatch to keep the record of the time. Frankly, between us girls, that thing can be in fact reprogrammed to go from a 3-minute start to a 5-minute start. But we don't want the people on the race committee doing that, you know, day by day or hour by hour. But it's going to be a 5-minute start, and we go through the whole detail of that shortly. I talked about wearing earmuffs. The cider has to be in a position with the individual recall and general recall. The race committee can postpone or abandon the race at any time the PRO deems it appropriate. Try and keep the conversation on the word to a minimum when you go through the starting sequence. Verify that all of the flags that you're going to use are ready. Verify who's going to be calling over recalls. If there's a separate finish line, make sure the code flag F is flying, and make sure it was announced clearly. We're on 37.
You 7, you're off.
The PRO can postpone for any reason he deems appropriate, he or she, by flying code flag 8P. If the race committee is not ready, the way they announce themselves to be ready, they can postpone. If they cover an error, they can postpone. If the wind dies, they can postpone. If there's a significant change in the course or the marks, we talked about that, this changing the starting line marks, you can change, you can postpone. If we're waiting for a racer who's coming out and we think he has a legitimate reason for being a little bit late, and maybe he's been telling us I'm on my way, we'll postpone. You can postpone even in the middle of the starting sequence if you have to. You can postpone at any time. The PRO can require that everybody who is racing wear a PFD by flying code flag Y if the weather conditions are appropriate in his view, or might be appropriate in the course of the race. Okay, the starting sequence for the 3-minute start. You see on the slide there, I'm not going to enunciate each one, but you know it starts with an attention automatically from the automatic horn, then 3 long horn blasts with 3 minutes to go, and you see the sequence of the horn blast, and you begin to get a feel for how many horn blasts there are going to be, and you know then multiply that by 2 or 3 races in the course of an afternoon, and that's why you wear the earmuffs. And the class flags go up before the attention signal to let everybody know who's going to be racing. There is no prescribed time as to when they come down, but certainly take them down by the end of the starting sequence. So after you start, take it down. And we don't have rolling starts on the Cal Bay Racing Association races. I distinguish that from, let's say, Thursday nights. On Thursday nights, they have rolling starts where the starting signal for a fleet is the warning signal for the next fleet to start. We don't do that on Cal Bay, and we don't do it in the yacht club race. If you start all over with attention, raising of the class flag of the next fleet to start, then you go through the attention sequence and then the starting sequence. Yes, sir.
The automatic horn is set on that sequence,
Yes.
but it's still also set on a rolling start, and so it
No.
must be,
Yeah, oh, yes, yes.
so it must be stopped.
Yes, yes, the PRO has to stop the sequence by pressing the two buttons, and it says, what's that?
Reset.
Reset.
Reset. So once the starting signal has been done, you press the reset button, so it doesn't go into another sequence.
Why does the the sonar or the division, the class flag go up in the sequence?
Before the attention,
Oh,
actually,
before the attention.
technically before the warning signal, but as a courtesy, do it before the attention signal.
And when does it count down?
At any time you want, up to the end of, up to the start.
The start.
All right, it's a courtesy thing. It makes very clear, sonars are starting now, the other boats should stay away. Once they have started, you put up the next
Yeah,
class.
as I remember from the rule of sailing some years ago, the one thing that counts is the flag. The sound is there and so on, but the flag is the one thing. Now, this is just the opposite. The flag doesn't make any
There
difference.
is no
The
flag.
sound.
There's no starting.
Flag.
Exactly. So the sound is the only.
The sound is
that
the only thing,
matters.
and that's why I tell you to have a horn
That's right.
ready, a manual horn and a whistle, in case the automatic thing.
That is a major change. That's fine, but it's just a major change.
Okay,
With
yeah.
5 minute with flags.
Huh?
With
No.
5 minute with flags, 3 minutes in flags.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, we'll come back to the 5 minutes in a moment, okay? Okay, and you see, the sonars 1 and Manhasset Bay 1 design boats are 3, and ideals are, I'm not sure what that's. Maybe, oh, that's 4. That's 4, but I was a typo. But there are such headings on the course board, on the word. Okay. Now, here we go for the racing starts for the North Shore Yacht Club races. It's a 5-minute sequence. It's noise and horns. Now, the only exception to that is with COVID, if we have a very short race committee, sometimes the race committee won't raise the flags. They'll simply announce it they'll make the horns and they'll announce it, but they don't always raise the flag. Am I right on this, Bill?
That's correct.
Okay. But if we have a full race committee, we're going to encourage them to use horns and flags. And okay. So it's a 5-minute start with the attention, warning, the class flag goes up, that's generally number 6, but again, check your sailing instructions. The P flag or preparatory flag goes up a minute later, with 4 minutes to the start. That flag comes down with 1 minute to start, and the class flag comes down with the start. And the sighting guy is watching the starting line to be sure who starts properly. On a cruising start, things begin the same way. So the 5-minute countdown is exactly the same. The come hither sign, the warning, the class flag goes up with the warning with 5 minutes to go, and so on. But the starting signal opens a window of 5 minutes during which you may start. And you can start at any time during that time. The race committee is obliged to record the hour, minute, and seconds that you cross the starting line. And you have to start within 5 minutes. The starting window closes with a single horn. And that says nobody can start anymore. Just to share with you, last year I went out to one of those races, and I had and I was sailing along and I had some problems. And I started fairly late into that time. I wasn't sure whether I started within the 5-minute window or not. I sailed the whole race. When we published the results, it was obvious that I started late. I withdrew from the race. So it's important to keep that time, and it's important to do that last 5-minute closing of the window sign, so everybody knows that they didn't start. I talked about we don't use rolling starts. There are other signals that race committees can use, like you can't be on the course side of the starting line and all. There are a bunch of stuff. We don't use any of that stuff. We're fairly informal, not even into it, and covering the things that we use. If one or a couple votes are over early, the person signing the line will waive the individual recall. They'll call out their sale number and say over early. They'll do this as loudly as possible. If there's any question about whether or not the people heard it, you repeat it on the radio. Once they are on the pre-start side of the line, you call out the sale number again and you say clear, and they're clear to start. If you get so many boats starting early that you can't figure out which one started early, or if there has been some massive mistake, you can have a general recall by this plus 2 horns, and that says that everybody has to come back and restart. And in that case, you start the whole sequence again. In fact, we're supposed to start at a minute after this comes down. But I think we're a little bit relaxed in that. To get them to the pre-start side, you start the signal. On some races, if the sailing instructions say so, which ours don't, and which we don't do in the kind of races we run, sometimes folks, the class that has a general recall is don't as good as go to the end of the line. So they make that class start after all the other classes start. But we don't do that. We simply restart that class as soon as the opportunity presents itself, and the sequence is repeated. So when I say the sequence, the classes or divisions start in the same order in which they were going to start.
And a boat that, if there's an individual recall, boat that's over early, they're obligated to do what?
To get to the pre-course side of the line any way they can, but they have no rights. So, and again, if the sailing instructions required it, some sailing instructors will require you to go around the end of the line. Ours don't. You simply have to get your boat however you can without fouling another boat to the pre-start side of the line. When you told that you're cleared by the race committee, you can restart.
And when you say they have no rights, if they tack, jibe, whatever, so that they're on a starboard tack,
No rights. No rights.
they have to stay clear of all the racers.
Exactly. They have no rights. They could be on starboard and a boat could be coming in at port. The boat is starting properly on port, has right of way. They have no rights.
They just drop the main and let the wind push them back.
No, they don't. Generally, you don't do that.
I know.
But you generally get to the pre-course side of the line as quickly as you can.
You might have to keep sailing with the boats because it's so crowded.
Yeah.
Before you can turn around and go back.
Right. For those of you at home who didn't hear that, Mary Lou points out that sometimes you have to continue to sail the course until you get clear air, or not clear air, clear space to make your turns, whether it be jibe or coming about or whatever, to get back to the pre-start line. But Tough noogies, man. Okay, I talked about the recall, the general recall with two horn blasts. And you restart the whole sequence over again. And technically, it should be a minute after that flag comes down. We're not even raising the flag, we're simply waving it. So we start we come hither again and we go through the whole thing.
What does it mean when it says after a general recall, the first substitute is lower?
This is the first substitute. This flag is first substitute. Okay, during the race committee does not necessarily go to sleep. They have to keep an eye on the weather. They have to keep an eye on the changing direction of the wind. They have to keep an eye on the progress of the fleet. Specifically in the one design races, they have a time limit that if the first mark is within the inner bay, which means roughly between or south of Plum Point, and it's designated by certain marks, with one off Plum Point and one on the Great Neck side, they have to be there within 30 minutes of the start. If they're not there within 30 minutes of the start, the race must be abandoned. And since they're way the hell out there, or they might, or we don't know where they're going to be. Excuse me. Let's say they're going to you. They should hear you if you make three horns, and the end flag that was shown there. But again, announce it on the radio. Make sure everybody hears it. If you have to, you send the race committee boat out there, and hey, the race is abandoned. Go home. Go back and start. And you have a choice of, you have a choice of saying, go back to the start, go ashore, no more racing for the day. We'll get to those in a minute.
Well, we haven't highlighted that, but the first vote, the race will go on with the first vote, makes it in.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And often that'll happen with the movie or something, it could go to O or W or A, but usually O or W, and it's pretty far, so they might need to use the binoculars to see that first vote gets there in 30 minutes, and it really should start time.
That reminds me.
Very right here.
Yeah, I had a situation, I think it was the year before last, where the second mark I gave him was W, which is on the Great Neck side, roughly opposite the Plum Point. Or maybe it was even, it might have been M, which is further out on that shore. And the wind dies, and the boats were out there, and they were busy. And but they were so far away, I couldn't talk to them, and half of them had the radio off. So I abandoned the race. I went out in the race committee boat and told each boat that the race was abandoned. So you have to be sure that you do in fact get to them. But that was a different situation than this. This is, and Mary was absolutely right. It's the first boat. If one boat gets to the first mark within the 30 minutes, it's a race.
But if you're gonna abandon the race because of lack of wind, that's it for the day, right?
No.
Sometimes it comes up.
I have to go to the next slide.
Richard,
Yes.
It's not in the chart. Is that always 30 minutes, or is that the time that is specified on the side and maybe different for each race?
It is a fixed time enunciated in the sailing instructions for Cowboy Racing Association. It's always 30 minutes to the first mark within the inner bay. Period. All right, so N over H says go to shore. Just the end flag says come back to the starting area. And in a couple of minutes, I'm going to show you another one.
very excited.
Holding you suspense. Okay, the race committee can change the course if it flies code flag C, and what happens there is, let's say the wind is dying and the boats are out at P or W, or it doesn't matter where they are. Well, it does matter where they are. But let's say the course was U, P, W. That means a course south of the Worry Wart, over to P, which is over by Micah, W, which is over by Great Neck, and then back to the Worry Wart. If you want to, okay, I can change the course by announcing before they get to the mark I have to get to the mark before the one that's going to be changed. So if I was going to eliminate W, the one on the Great Neck side, I have to get to the boats before they get to P and say, don't go to P. I can announce it on the radio, but unless I confirm with every single boat that they've heard me, I'm going to get in the race committee boat. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to make sure I'm going to be flying code flag C, and I'm going to get a hold of each boat and say, hey, we've changed. The next mark is the Worry Wart or whatever I'm going to announce, and I have the right to do that. And you can change that class by class. You don't have to do it for all of them.
Did you say the code, the flag C is on the committee boat or on the?
Well, because you could put it on the Worry Wart, but nobody's going to see it. So because they're all way the hell out there. So it's a good idea to wave it as you sail around, motor around, and say, hey, there's a course change. Okay, you can also shorten the course. So on the twice around courses, that's easy. You raise the flag on the Worry Wart, you shoot off 2 horns, you announce it on the radio. The boats are obliged to come through the finish line anyway. That's the end of that. But let's say in the example that I gave you before, for whatever reason you want to finish the race at W, and don't ask the boats to come back to the Worry Wart or at P for that matter. You have to get to the mark where you're going to shorten the course to, let's say P, before the first boat gets there. So you announce it on the radio. You can blow all the horns you want, but you have to go out there and tell them with the race committee. You do it, you know, affirmatively.
Richard, if you change the course and you fly the C flag and you go out to the mark and you say, I got the C flag, when do you tell them where the new course is?
You tell them when you're there. You say,
You don't-
okay, this is the next.
You're not
mark
like
is-
waving
next mark
D or
is-
something.
Well,
Screen it,
pardon me?
screen it.
You tell them, yeah. I mean, yeah. If this were, you know, on some of the races, you know, let's say, thinking about, you know, races for very small boats, you know, dingy size races, blazes. The courses are so short, you know, they're half a mile, the marks are half a mile apart. If you raise the flag on a race committee boat, the people are obliged to see it. But even on those kind of races, I mean, I don't race those kind of races these days, but I would suspect that a mark boat goes out and says, hey, the next mark is, or the finish is. So you want to do your very best to have everybody informed. Yes, sir.
Richard, from experience, these flags and conditions really apply mostly to the day race.
Well, what I say somewhere, I forget exactly what I say. It doesn't work. You almost can't change it, and even the day race is hard to change because on the
Day race, oh, it's quite straightforward. I've changed it many times.
Well, you change it many times. If you change it from the race committee boat
Right.
without, and you announce it on the radio, those boats that are not listening on the radio.
No. In the day race, the race committee boat is fast. It's a boat, and it'll get out in the mark very quick.
Well, if
It actually
you
marked
have,
those
if you
well.
have a boat that's fast, this year we're gonna be
It's still
using
hard.
Resolve, it's a J40. the most you can go under power, I'm sure, is 7 knots, and it's not gonna get out there. And when, don't look at me like that, it's not gonna get, it's not, you're not gonna be able to tell the people. And the last race committee vote we had could not take, which is now the work boat, couldn't take rough water, it would take water over the bow. So if that was out there,
Does that mean or imply for the day race that we ought to have a marked boat as well?
I'll take that up with the race management committee. But in general, even on the day race, I'm talking from my personal experience, I would not like to see us do that kind of thing. You may have to shorten the course, you may have to shorten the race.
Yes.
And you handle it the best way you can, which is radio. If you have a boat that can chase out there, do it. But I don't know that I'll talk to the race management. You also use the abandonment or code flag N in the event that no boat finishes within the time limit of the race. All of our races in the sailing instructions have time limits. So you again put up the flag, you make the signals, but again, if you abandon a race, it's best to go out and tell them.
Yeah, just go home and leave them out there.
It's affirmative. Well, I guess at that time when I abandoned that race at W or M or whatever it was, some of the people were angry in that, I abandoned the race. They didn't hear me until I got out there, and they, oh, did you tell the other guys? We're still racing, and, there was a little bit of that.
But you told us all.
Yeah, yes. Well, at least, particularly, the dilemma for the race committee, if you're going to abandon a race when one of at M, most of the boats have to come back into the bay to go home anyway. So that's a dilemma. But so they would have missed it. I'm pretty sure I abandoned at the point where I was sure no boat was going to finish within the time limit. So that's what allowed me to feel comfortable with it.
In case of no wind, is there an established procedure for taking the motorless boats home?
Well, I think it's a matter of courtesy.
No, but I mean, there is a procedure that the racing committee follows or should follow, or is just everybody up to oneself?
I think it's a little bit up to the PRO and his comfort level with towing boats. And you have to be comfortable. You have to know how to tow boats. Don't forget, most of the yacht clubs, including our own, if called upon, will go out and rescue our boats that have no wind and can't get back to their mooring, with a launch or something like that. They don't like to do it, but we will do it in extreme conditions. I did it because I was comfortable doing it, and I ended up towing a couple of boats back. And certainly with the race committee boat we have now, I think it has a 70 horsepower motor. You can tow 2 or 3 sonars without a problem. I can tell you, I personally, when we ran out of wind on the day race one time, we were fighting current, and I towed another member of the club. I towed back Paul Mile's boat. With my boat, his engine didn't start.
That was the Moonlight Regatta.
Yeah, Moonlight Regatta, right. But you're not obliged to do it, but if you can do it comfortably and safely.
There is no procedure, common sense.
There's common sense. There's no written procedure. And I think a lot depends upon the condition. For instance, if it's thunderstorming, you don't want to endanger the race committee boat. People race at their own decision, or their own risk, if you will. You have to use your own judgment. I would do my best to rescue boats that needed rescuing, whether it was high winds or low winds or no winds. But that doesn't mean that I would impose that on others, or I would use my judgment. Okay, so if you're gonna abandon races for the day, and I don't think we do this, you can fly and flag over A. More often than not, when I'm on the race committee, I consult with the folks that are racing. Hey, you have enough for today? Yeah, we had enough for today. You ready for one more? Yeah. And I don't start raising flags. We just go home. We announce on the radio and make sure every boat knows that there's no more racing. The race committee can protest the vote if it sees a violation. It can't protest based on hearsay or reported problem or anything like that. It has to see it. If it does want to protest, it has to notify the folks that's being protested. It has to file a protest in the proper, within the time limit prescribed by the races, by the sailing instructions. And that should be reported on the scoring sheet and reported to the Cal Bay Racing Association or to the North Shore Yacht Club if it's. But again, we've had very few protests. The finish. Boat finishes when part of her hull crosses the finish line. We talked about that before. The finish line is a line between the blue flag and the finishing pennant. The finishing pennant is described in the sailing instructions as a flag with a mark with two flags on it. Make sure you hung the blue flag. The sighter calls out the sail number and the sequence of the finishers, both to finish, the first boat to finish in each division gets a horn. The other boats get a whistle. In the case of, and the reporter records the sequence. In the case of the North Shore Yacht Club boats, whether it's a cruising start or a racing start, we have to record the hour, minutes, and seconds of the finish because the time allowances are based on that. If there are any protest flags, that's a red flag being flown. You make note of that on the scoring sheet. You make a record of each boat that finishes or doesn't finish. Some don't. A boat should, as a matter of courtesy, tell you that they're not finishing. They're dropping out if they do so. But no.
Richard? Yeah. I have a question about the blue flag. There are times I've experienced when a race is being started, when another race is finishing on the same line. They're in the same direction. The start and the finish are coming the same direction. So there's no problem with collisions or possible collision. But what flag are you flying? In other words, a yellow or orange flag denotes the starting line. Supposedly, the blue flag denotes a finish line, but they're the same line. So what do you do?
Yeah, both of them.
Is that your judgment or is it the judgment of the rules?
The sailing instructions say that the finish, one end of the finish line must be devoted by a blue flag. They also say that the one end of the starting line must be defined by an orange flag.
Right.
I said earlier, maybe you didn't catch it. You don't necessarily have to have these on the same post. You could have one on this post and one on that post, but then you need two siders in the case of simultaneous finishing and starting.
I'm sorry, but I don't. That's essentially two different lines.
Well,
Yeah.
nothing says you can't have.
Well, if they're being cited from different points.
That's what he just.
Okay, so,
Okay, that's what we'll do.
well, or you could put them, if that bothers you, put one on top of the other, and it's one line, one sider, otherwise you need two siders.
Now, the blue flag is specified in the new RRS, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
What a foolish thing to do, in my opinion.
I suggest you write to the powers that be.
Right.
Okay. Make sure all the votes are finished. You repack all that stuff in those bags and you put them in the right bags. You replace the horse placards into the box in the worry ward. You lock the cabin to the worry ward. You retrieve all the marks you set out, whether it's starting, finishing, special marks, any of them, put them in the race committee boat. You bring the race committee boat back to the dock, you unload all the equipment. If there's gonna be a race tomorrow, the next day, leave the starting marks and the anchors and the special marks in the boat. Maybe not the special marks. If the special marks are blown up, I guess you take them out. Put them in the basement. Coordinate it with Captain Vic or the launch guy. But leave the anchors there so you don't have to. I'm saying take them out. Doing this on the fly, just because you don't want them to get blown out of the boat in case there's heavy winds that night. And they detach with their clip shackles on, snapshot of the team. You take the boat back, you unload it, put the stuff in the storage room, in the bags, for the storage room. And even if there's a race tomorrow, you put the bags in the storage room. If for any reason you think that the battery pack needs charging, let the race management committee know that, or let Captain Vic know it, or simply plug it in so it can get charged overnight. But then make a clear note to the race management committee so they know that the guy that it ends up in the bag tomorrow, so it goes out to the proper stuff. We won't leave it in the clubhouse when it's time to go. Report any problems with the boat or the radio to Captain Vic or the launch operators. Deliver the scoring sheet for the one design for boats to Mary Lou, or put it in the winter mail slot if she's not here. That's the mail slot at the base of the steps. Deliver the scoring sheet for North Shore Yacht Club races to the race management committee member. Reporting equipment problems to Vic and to the race management people. Reporting the issues with the race, with the worry ward to the race management committee. Unless Captain Vic or a launch operator gives you other direction, return the boat to the moorings. Sometimes they say, you know, leave it at the dock, we'll take care of it. I wanted my beer now. You're asking questions, it's time for beer. Yes, ma'am.
When they do the scoring with that piece of paper, the scoring sheet on the clipboard with the elastic, sometimes it gets very scribbly, so a lot of times we would want to copy it over. Most important at the top, you put what the wind is, what the direction is, and what the course is, and whether the report started roundings. And that's very.
Okay, so for those of you at home who didn't hear Mary Lou, who was responsible for passing on this information, the scoring page for the North Shore, for the Cowboy Racing Association races has places where you put in the wind, the date, the sea conditions. I don't know about sea conditions, but the horse sail and with which marks are left to port and starboard and so on. She wants all of that information so that they can properly score those races. So we asked you to fill that out. I actually had that in my language. Okay, after the race, a lot of people go up to the deck and rehash the races, have a little refreshment. The race, the day race, we're going to have a committee. The day race is June 5th. It's going to be a race on Long Island Sound. The race committee vote will be resolved in J40 by Franco Presley. We're going to have probably a full race committee of 4 or 5 people. And I still going to need at least 2 more able-bodied. And the other The other races, as I said, are going to be 2 to 4 people total. It would be PRO. I'm going to be sending out an email shortly to the entire club, inviting PROs to sign up for the days that they want to serve, and asking them if they want to fit their own committee, or should I lasso volunteers to go on the committee. So if you are a PRO and if you want to pick a prime date, check the club website, which has the dates of our reward obligations, and let me know what you want to do. Yes, sir.
Have those dates already been established?
Yes, those dates are on our website. They're very clear.
And
I
then all-
have one additional question about the blue flag, not questioning its use, but rather, whenever we set up a separate finish line, it will be demarked by a blue flag then on the boardwalk and 2 little pennants on the pin. Is that right?
That's right, but always look at the sailing instructions to verify that it continues to be right. It is right as a matter of best practice, and it's right. Check the sailing instructions.
In case of emergency, a couple of years ago, Captain Rick says, first thing is to call the clock, 78, is that still the number?
Yes.
And if that doesn't work, 16 for the Coast Guard, is that still correct?
Yes. Yeah. You can also dial, you can use the website, I'm sorry, cell phone, or you can use 16 should work well. Sometimes 9 works well. A lot of people, 9 is
Channel
9. But 16 is the official emergency station. I could read you the worrywart dates, but I'd rather you just look on the website. It's clear. It's easy.
We're also
Anybody
posted
here?
on the hall downstairs.
Oh, yeah, right. They're on the bulletin board downstairs. If anybody wants them tonight, see me after this is closed. Unless there's any more questions, we're going to close it. Are there any questions from home?
If you have a question at home, unmute yourself and ask it. Or put it in the chat. There's nothing in the chat right now.
Well, Richard, this is Peter. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Peter.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm ready, but I already signed up with Bill and Mary to serve on the race committee on June the 12th, is it?
Yes.
So-
I'm aware of that.
Very good, Peter.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, again, as I say, I'm not sure if I'm ready. There are a lot of rules and, things which I know nothing about at this point. So I guess we'll see, right?
No, we won't have to see. Bill and Mary will make sure you perform admirably, and they will begin to train you to be a PRO.
Well, that's what I mean. I have 2 principal race officers, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're,
Okay.
don't worry about a thing. Just follow instructions.
Okay.
Woody, I see you're unmuted, Woody. Did you have a question?
No question. I just want to thank Richard. Very, very good presentation.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank
I know, it's a wealth of knowledge.
Wait, Carlos, did you want to
No,
say
just
something,
same here.
Carlos?
Thank you.
Okay.
I hope to be able to join you soon.
Okay, good. I hope you get better fast, Carlos.
I'm trying. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna sign off here now. Okay,
All right. Thank you, Richard.
okay. Bye.